Hey, what's going on, everybody? I've been getting a lot of people that have been reaching out to me lately who are wondering about what's going on with the fires and the flooding right here in Flagstaff. And it's been a pretty devastating year as far as fires and flooding are concerned, and there's a lot going on. So stay tuned, and we're going to get into it right here in this video coming up next. What's up, everybody? This is Jason with the Shafor real estate team here in Flagstaff, Arizona. If this is your first time to the channel and you want to know everything there is to know about working, eating, sleeping, breathing, living right here in Flagstaff, Arizona, then make sure you tap that subscribe button so you're notified every time we do a new video. And honestly, we get people that are reaching out to us, calling us every day thinking about relocating to Flagstaff, and we absolutely love it. So make sure you call, text, email us anytime, send a pigeon carrier, it doesn't matter. We just want you to know that we got your back when it comes to moving right here in Flagstaff, Arizona. Okay, so today we want to get into the video. I've been getting a lot of requests for people wondering about fires and flooding and what's going on with Flagstaff and how serious is all this stuff. And so I'm going to talk, go back kind of just growing up here when I was a kid. Talk about how the fire seasons were then as they are now. So when I was a kid, we did have a few fires around pretty close to town. I remember one time we got put on ready mode where you should get your stuff together and just be ready at a moment's notice to get going in case you need to get evacuated. But we never got evacuated or anything like that. It was a little scary. I think I was about 10 years old. I don't even remember the name of the fire. It was sometime in the 90s. But a lot of those fires were lightning caused back in the day. What we're seeing now is a lot more fires are being human caused in the area. And I'm going to go back, let's go back 10 years right now to one of the bigger fires that really started a lot of flooding problems and did a lot of damage and was actually really scary. And that was the Schultz fire in 2010. And if you go out east of Flagstaff, if you're out in the Donny Park area, and if you guys don't know that, I'll have more videos to kind of showcase that area. It's northeast side of Flagstaff, really common rural area of town. That Schultz fire burned that whole side of that mountain. If you go out there, you'll see a giant scar. I mean, it burned all the way up there. It was super scary when that happened in 2010, and that happened in the summer. And so we typically, when we get fires, most of the time they happen in June. Sometimes in May, in June, that's when we're typically going to see most of our fires. Sometimes we'll see them in July when we get into the monsoon season with lightning. But more of these fires are we're getting a lot more people that are recreating out in the forest, especially with population growing in Arizona, here in northern Arizona. We got a lot of people that want to go out and camp and recreate. Once the forest gets nice, and May and June, when the temperatures are too hot in the valley, people come up. So we're starting to see a lot more of those human-caused fires. But 2010, get back on track on the Schultz fire. 2010, it burned the whole side of that mountain in June. Well, when that monsoon season came in July, what happens is it just flooded that whole area. All the water came down the side of that mountain, and when you get a fire, it moves the water drainages because there's not any grass or anything or rocks to stop a lot of that water from coming down. It's just an impervious surface that just rushes down. So we saw a ton of flooding in the Donny Park area. A lot of people, if it wasn't already hard enough during that time economically in the housing industry, we saw a lot of people getting houses getting flooded, things like that. So a year later, a bunch of grants came in. Army Corps of Engineers came in, and if you go out there now, you'll see giant drainage ditches all along 89A north of town. There's big culverts, drainages under the road to allow for all this water that might come out that way. They were planned for a 1,000-year flood. So they made them super big out there, which was good because that was in 2011 and 12 when they built all that. Well, fast forward, now we talk about another fire that hit 2019. We had the museum fire, which actually happened just kind of right behind me here, up on the side of Mount Eldon on the backside. And I was really close to a lot of homes that were on Schultz Pass Road. It was pretty scary. I mean, you could see the flame. You're driving down Route 66 and 4th Street, and you've just got this bowl that you're looking at the mountain, and the flames are shooting way up in the sky. So it was definitely a scary time being here. Again, that happened in the summer in June. Human-caused fire. Someone didn't put out a campfire. Actually, I want to say that maybe that was July, because I remember I was coming back from Mormon Lake that day and I saw that fire. It was crazy how it grew. Not positive 100%, but regardless, that museum fire, it burned a very large portion of that mountain. And then guess what happened? Well, actually, it wasn't until last year, 2021. It actually was 2 years, because 2020 we had the driest monsoon season in 100 years. But 2021, last year, when it actually did rain on that museum fire, we did have a lot of flooding right in the center of Flagstaff. You can see videos of cars going down the street, and actually to this day now, you can still see there's people with sandbags out in front of their houses. And I'm going to make some more videos kind of showing you some of those neighborhoods and what you can expect, maybe things to look at if you're thinking about moving here. But it came through there. It wiped out a lot of houses. I actually had a house I'd sold to some investors, and the actual car that came down the street, they hadn't have a tenant in, and it actually flooded the house. A car went through the garage. It was a nightmare. And of course they didn't have flood insurance because it wasn't in the floodplain, because the fires always move the floodplain around. So it's been kind of a nightmare. We're still dealing with it years later. But that did go right through the center of town. The city of Flagstaff is working on expanding culverts and working on the drainages to slow the water down. This year, 2022, we've had a pretty good monsoon season, and nothing in the center of town has gotten severely flooded too bad. So that's a good thing. I know when they built the new school at Killup, they actually when they built the fields, they actually dug them down an extra 6 feet to actually retain a lot of that water. So the city's actively working. It just takes time. These things, just because the fire happened 1 year, it takes a couple years for us to actually update the infrastructure and systems and do studies on where the water is going, so we know how to calculate it and what to put in. So that is getting worked on. And that one, the museum fire, really affected the center of town. Last year, they had to shut it down. You had 2-3 feet of water through Sunnyside, Lower Greenlaw. It was pretty crazy. It definitely affected a lot of people. And so fast forward this year, 2022, we started out with the first fire I've ever seen in April. It was the earliest one I have ever seen, but that was the tunnel fire that we had. And that it burned out on 89, kind of northeast of town, and burned a lot of the side of that peaks in the Donny Park area. It actually took down over 20 homes and structures this year. It was pretty sad. It was pretty devastating. We had a super windy spring. It was super dry. We did not get enough snow to wet down the forest. So it went through there. It wreaked havoc. It was scary. The Forest Service never shut down the forest. And then we had another fire happen, which was I keep getting confused. It was a pipeline fire. That was the most recent one that we just had. And that was super scary. We had flames that were just massive, bigger than any flames I've ever seen. And what that did was it kind of went over a lot of the burn of the Schultz fire, and it absolutely incinerated any bit of growth that came back from that. And if you go look right now, it looks like the moon out there. If you're out on 89, it affected a lot of the view of the property. The mountain views is like looking at basically the side of the moon. So it's deterred a lot of people. A lot of homes canceled during that time. Keep in mind, a lot of people like flood insurance. They won't underwrite any insurance policies. They'll put a hold on things in the area when fires like that happen, or a lot of carriers do. So it's always something you want to look at when you're making a move here. But what that did was it incinerated a lot of that mountain again, and now we're getting heavy monsoon season, and it's really hitting the side of that mountain. So now a lot of that stuff back from the Schultz fire, 2010, a lot of those areas are flooding, and we're actually seeing flooding in areas that were never planned to flood. I've got some really close friend and in-laws of mine actually got majorly affected by it. Their roads gets washed out every time it rains. There's 2 to 3 feet of water in it. It's pretty devastating what's going on. And now we're starting to see a lot of different drainages out there north off 89 where a lot of these giant boulders are getting washed down. I mean, really huge boulders. I mean, anywhere from boulders the size of a tire to the size of a car are coming down that mountain. And so a lot of these drainages are starting to get backed up with the rocks. I was actually just reading a friend's Facebook post this morning. They have engineers out there right now inspecting sewer manholes and getting in the drainage ditches, inspecting these because the monsoon season's still in effect here. And there's still a lot of people that are still very worried about the flooding. We've had it, we've seen where it goes. So the community really gathers and rallies each other and gets the sandbags up and gets things, helps each other out. That's one thing that's really great about Flagstaff is everyone seems to come together in times like this. So we're still seeing the effects of the flooding out there. We don't have a short fix yet. They're going to have to study it. It's probably going to be another year or two before we actually see that, and pray we don't have any more fires out there. I know there's not much forest left to burn on that side of the mountain, but it's definitely affecting people a lot. I would say that the fires are not the worst, scariest thing. It's actually the flooding that comes after it that is so scary and things that you really got to think about. So when you're moving here, one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put a link below that you can see the flood map of Northern Arizona and Flagstaff, and it'll give you a good idea of areas to maybe be cautious or aware of. And I'll do a whole other entire videos kind of showcasing some of the neighborhoods that are getting affected by those fires and floods. So we actually just last week had some more flooding actually right up the street from our office here in the downtown area in Coconino Estates, which has traditionally never flooded. A lot of that stuff from the recent, from the pipeline fire actually rolled down. It's actually coming down the mountain on the west side and is actually flooding that neighborhood. So I know a lot of people in Coconino Estates and some of those old neighborhoods, Old Town Flagstaff, are being affected tremendously by the flooding that's going on. So it's definitely opened up a whole new can of worms. So we'll see. I'll make some more videos as we get more answers as to what's going on and what are going to be the fixes for all this flooding. But right now, there's definitely some neighborhoods to be cautious of and areas that you probably want to stay away from. So stay tuned as I'll make some more videos and go out and showcase some of these areas. So thanks for watching, guys.